Hello and welcome to this interactive webinar, Leading People Through Change. People say that change is a fact of business and personal life, but if change is such a normal part of life, then why aren't we better at implementing it? The latest research shows that anything, on the low side, 60%, on the high side, 88% of all change initiatives fail. Failed and stalled initiatives generally cost your organization time, money, and resources. They also lower productivity and engagement. And I believe if you just understand that people go through predictable and sequential stages of concerns, we're able to be proactive, anticipate the questions, anticipate these concerns, then you'll be able to create a culture of resilience and agility that results in getting results faster, reduces risks, and also increases confidence. So, this session here is really about giving you some practical tips, introducing you to a new model. I'll tell you a little bit more about the model later, but it's really to help you lead successful change initiatives. We're going to look at diagnosing, we're going to look at people, we're going to look at the predictable and sequential stages of change and how people evolve and move through those stages. So for those of you who have never attended one of my talks before, if you've attended one of my talks before, just go ahead and raise your hand or type in yes into the chat box would be great. If you've never attended one of my talks before, thank you, Mark. If you've never attended one of my talks, I like to give interactive talks. I like to engage with you. But, really, why I'm doing this is, I come out of a corporate environment of the last 25 years. I've led teams both virtually, matrix organization and virtually in different countries, as well as direct teams. And it's been on various projects, launching products and services all the way through M&A acquisitions, increasing sales, reducing costs, and I really want to share what I've learned and some of the tools that I've used and have helped me in guiding people. So by the time you leave the webinar this afternoon, you'll know how to identify and address questions that employees typically raise, and also how to resolve their concerns to increase buy-in, commitment, and involvement. And, and I hope that it's going to be fun. I hope you will get a lot out of today. As I said, I'd like to give interactive webinars and I like to interact. The reason I like to interact is because I don't want to talk at you, but I want to talk with you. And I can't see your facial expressions. I can't see your body language. So by interacting with me, I can see that you're following, you're learning, and we're having a little bit of fun together. So I know we've touched on some of the tools. We've looked at the chat box because I'm going to be asking you some questions and asking you to type in there. We're also going to use the check mark to choose a couple of options from a list I may give you. And then as well as, if you've got any questions, please raise your hand. I would love to be able to answer them as best as I can. So let's get started, because you haven't come to do that. Okay, you haven't come to listen to me, but let's get started. So people say that change is a fact of business life, as we said. It's all around us. Change is growing. 70 to 80% of change initiatives fail. So one of the acronyms I tend to use is VUCA, which is, I think not unused and not everyone is pretty familiar with it. So one of my first questions to you, and that's just to get us started and just to understand, do you think the change we're going through, the world is going through today, do you think it's faster, slower, or the same than what you've experienced in the past? Now, I've just shared the poll. Yeah, the poll is up. So, just go ahead. I'd love you to go ahead, select one of them, and then hit submit. And I'd love to see, what everyone thinks, just to get an idea, and then we can go from there. I see some of the results coming in, and I will share them. They're all anonymous, so I don't know who is saying what, which is great. We've had a couple more answers. Just going to wait for the last one or two. Excellent. Perfect. Let me go and share that poll with everyone. So, when you look at it, do you think the world is changing? And pretty much 90% of the people said, yes, it's changing, and it's changing faster. either faster or the same. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement that we're in a moment of change. So yeah, just a few things to highlight as we jump into it. I remember seeing some research, must have been the end of last year or the beginning of this year. It couldn't have been any later than January or February, where research was saying that, for most organizations, most HR organizations, training, leadership change was one of the main topics and one of the main topics and priorities that they've had. Unfortunately, we also know that most organizations have a poor track record of implementing change. Change seems to be one of those tough nuts that we haven't cracked yet. And to me, I get excited because I believe it represents a large opportunity for us. Because if you think of the successes we've had, the results we've been able to bring with the results, with how effective we are at introducing the change, then, I get excited because if we were doing X job up until now, imagine if we get better at it, how much more we could do. So, it's a tough nut to crack and it represents a large opportunity. And, a lot of things have been said about many of the topics up here, and leading people through change. And what I want to share a little bit today really covers all different sizes of organizations as well as different types of change we're going through. So I just want to quickly run another question for you. Let me just get this one up. And this one I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10. Would you go ahead and rate yourself? How successful are you at implementing and sustaining change in your organization? Just go ahead, select one of them. There's between 1 and 10. If you don't see 9 and 10 at the bottom, just go ahead and select that. I see we've got some numbers coming in. We've got 7s, we've got 8s, 6s, 5s. And we're just going to give it another couple of seconds while the last ones come in. Good, good, good. Okay, I think, yeah, last second. Let's have a look. Okay, yeah, let's call it there. And I can end that one and quickly share the results. So you can see that most people, are around the 6, 7, and 8. There's a couple of 4, there's a 1, 4, there's a couple of 5s. So that's, thank you for sharing that. I'm quickly going to stop that and jump back. And, and one of the things that I tend to do that exercise with pretty much most people and most organizations I speak to. And I'm very excited because today we had some 7s and we had some 8, because rarely do I get anything above a 6. And the reason you probably don't get much more than a 6 or a 7 or the occasional 8 is that because, change is something that organizations are struggling at. And, it's something critical and we need to get better at it. Especially if you think of what the crises that are going on now, we need to get better at it. I mean, I just got off the phone literally a couple of minutes before we got onto the webinar, and I was speaking to the president of Swiss MEM, so that's the Swiss manufacturing organization. And, Jean-Philippe was telling me that they are looking at and they're trying to put predictions together using models where they're trying to plan for the future, but they've got nothing to go on it. And he says, yeah, it's making a lot of companies feel uncomfortable because you've got to plan for an unplannable future almost. And that's just the way he put it. So really what we're talking about is, both big C and what I would call small C change. Big C is what I say is, is the once off, you're implementing a new ERP system, a CRM system, something, one specific piece of change, but it's a large piece, a merger and acquisition. Small C change is really, what I would call organizations just trying to become more agile and adapt to the world around us, which is constantly changing. So that might not be a big thing, but that's what I would call small C, and just becoming more manageable and better at it. And most people look at it that when they go out and implement things, especially when you look at implementing a big C change, most people aren't looking for a 6 or a 7. If you're going out to implement a big C change, you're probably looking for 8, 9s, and 10s. but yet, people don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to get that, or they can get that. Why do you think that they don't have a lot of confidence? They don't have a lot of confidence because they haven't done it in the past. We saw some 4s, we saw some 5s, we saw some 6s. We don't see many 8s, 9s, and 10s, but that's really what we need to get to be more successful. We need to move from fear and worry and doubt to being competent and confident. So moving ahead, some of these outcomes that I'm showing on the screen now, these are the ones people are looking for when they're implementing change. And most of these are obvious. If you think of faster results, or increased buy-in and resilience, or reducing risk, increasing confidence, those are fairly obvious. And the first 3 are what I would say is people are after when they're implementing a single big C change initiative. The 4th one, change leadership capabilities, that's probably a byproduct, I believe, of doing a lot of change initiatives, either small c or big C, but that's an ongoing process, and it's about becoming as agile as possible. Now, I'm going to ask you again, if you would just open up your chat box, and as you open up your chat box, I would love you to type in, some of your thoughts to the following question. Are there any other results that you would be interested in seeing that are not listed up there? So are there any other results, if you were implementing either a big C or a small c change, what other results would you want to see up there? Is there anything that I am missing other than fast results, buy-in, resilience, and the confidence and reducing risk? If you've got something, I would love to hear. I think we've probably hit the biggest ones, but just in case, it's worth having a look at. Maybe I might have missed something. Okay, it seems like sustainability, nice one, Mark. Yep, sustainability is an important one, especially as we go greener. Quality, yes. Quality could also potentially be under the results, but yeah, absolutely quality. Readiness for the future, yeah. I guess we could probably put that under, confidence. But no, wonderful answers. So, thank you for sharing those with us. And I would really like to share a model with you. And this is not my model. It's really a model that's come across from one of my strategic partners, the Ken Blanchard Companies, and the gentleman, Judd Hoekstred, who was a key founder and a key component of bringing this model together. He shared this model, and I absolutely loved it. And I've been, using it for the last number of years. And it's one of those models that has been developed over time, researched, tested, proven, and I absolutely just love it. So, one of the first things you're probably asking is, well, great, okay, so why is this model different from anything else? And I'm not going to take you through all 7 of these. I'm going to share the slides with you. You will have all 7. So I might just occasionally drop into one of them or more of them, but I'm not going to cover all 7 of those. And if there's only one thing that you can remember and take away from today, then this is probably, probably the first thing that I want you to take away, is that this model that I'm going to share with you is both diagnostic and prescriptive, and when we use it and combine it with the stages of concern that's been researched, and I will share the research paper with you later on, we land up meeting people where they are at, and the one thing we know to be true about change is that people go through change not at the same rate. They go through change at different rates. And yes, you have some early adopters, you have people in the middle, and you've got, your laggards, your slow catchers on. And if you use a linear approach without a diagnostic part to help people, to tell people down at the individual level where they're at, then, a couple of things happen. You're going to hit some people with your messaging and communication, and you're going to miss others. So if you don't diagnose, then you're not going to understand where people are, and you won't be able to meet them where they're at. So I just wanted to share that with you before we dive into the model in a little bit more detail. Some of the key concepts about this model is, and this is just a few of them up on the screen, but, the model, one of the key differentiators is that people go through predictable and sequential stages of concerns and change, and this is where leaders can anticipate, surface them and address them. So, a big part of what we're going to talk about is, leaders kind of tend to make the same mistakes over and over again and again. And it's probably related to, the reason for it is that they make the same mistakes. They're not aware of the mistakes they're making. So quite often they keep walking into quicksand, change after change after change. And we say that, this is predictable. If it's predictable, we can be proactive. We can plan around it. And as you plan around it, you can show the results. You can anticipate the concerns, the questions, and meet people where they're at and help them where they're at the moment. Another part is of the model, well, we're big advocates on high involvement, collaboration, change efforts that are both rich in dialogue or communication. I'm a great believer in communication. So many of the models out there have communication as a linear approach, and they kind of go, well, this is a good time to involve people. So we do some user testing. This is a good time to involve people. So we do some training. This is a good time to communicate with people. And it's all dispersed at various points, but it's all linear. Our belief is that while change may not be an option, and no one is really saying that when an organization is going through change that we're going to sit there and we're going to vote and go, do we want the change or no? No, no one's talking about taking a vote on change. The change is going to happen. It's mandatory. But what we believe in is we want to give people a voice. Give them a voice throughout the change process. And by giving them a voice, then you have an opportunity to influence them. And if you don't get their buy-in and their voice, then you've got very little opportunity to influence them. And they're going to feel distanced. They're going to feel left out of the change. And then, which inevitably they land up getting frustrated. Now, we also talk about 3 different attitude pools towards change. We look at the advocators, we look at undeciders, and we look at the resistors. And one of the things we know to be true is that most leaders, right at the start of a change, they tend to focus, where do they focus their time? Disproportionately, they focus their time on the resistors and not nearly enough time on focusing on the advocates. And, my question to you, and again, open up your chat box if it's not open, I'd like to ask, why do you think leaders focus more of their time on the resistors rather than advocates? So just open up your chat box. What are some of the reasons you think that leaders would focus more on resistors versus focusing on the advocates? So I'm just going to give everyone a couple of seconds. Open up your chat box, type in, I'm just going to have a quick sip of water. Oh, I like some of the comments coming in. Dean, resistors have louder voices. Teresa, to get their buy-in. Mark, to take out negative elements in the team. Yeah, all very, very absolutely valid reasons, So thank you for sharing it. One of the reasons, we talk about focusing on the advocates is because advocates expand your change leadership team. As an example, one of the recommendations I have for many organizations who are trying to roll an initiative out. So let's say you are rolling an initiative out to your sales organization, then yeah, the sales leaders would be involved in that conversation at the beginning where, is there a need for change there? Do we need to change? How are we going to change? But then I say, then run it past some of your top salespeople, get their buy-in. And once you've got their buy-in, say to them, hey, not just your buy-in, but help us rolling this out. Because what we know is that when the top salespeople help roll change out, they are perceived very differently by their peers, by the sales organization. They are seen as advocates. And the advocates, of the change, they're seen as advocates. So what's going to happen is most of the sales organization will look and go, oh, these are the top sales guys. These are the ones on the top of our leaderboard. They hit the most. They bring in the most sales. If these guys say it's good enough for me, it's good enough for me. So suddenly you can bring advocates in and help you to speed up change, get by, because they perceive this differently to the people trying to roll the change out. So let's, dive into the various stages of concern in the model. And yep, that one's up. So, as I said, there are 5 stages, and the first stage really is the community information concerns. Information concerns is exactly what it sounds like. People tend to ask themselves the following questions. What's the change? What's wrong with the way things are now? Why is the change needed? And it's interesting, yet many times leaders have very good rationale, have very good reasons for why the change is needed, but they just don't share it. They don't share it with the people that they're expecting to do the change and go through the change. So they don't share the same rationale that they've gone through to make them realize that the change is needed with the people that are expected to do the change. And it sounds strange, but that is just the way it is. And let me put it this way, at the beginning part, when you're trying to roll out change, don't sell the people the change. Just tell the people about it, give them the rationale that you have, and you know what? Most people will come to the same conclusion. You give them the same reasons, they understand the problems, they look at the reasoning behind it, and they go, yeah, guess what? We need to change. They'll come to the same conclusions on your own. So don't sell the change, just tell people about the change. The second stage of concern is what I call personal concerns. And again, this is exactly what it sounds like. People are going to be asking themselves, how is this change going to impact me personally? Am I going to win? Am I going to lose? What am I going to gain? What's this going to cost me? How will I find the time to do this? And for some of you who have attended some of my other trainings, there's an exercise I tend to do where I pair everybody up into twos, and I tend to then go and ask everyone to make some changes to their physical appearance. So, for example, you take your glasses off, or you mess up your hair, or you take your tie off. I ask them to do 5, 10, 15, 20 changes. And one thing that amazes me when I look around the room, everyone that's going through the change feels like they went through it alone. And at some point, they tend to run out of ideas of what could be possible in changing their appearance. And, even though there are 20 other people in the room, all changing their appearances, and they're allowed to look and they're allowed to copy these changes, generally nobody does. Because when you're going through change, you tend to focus on yourself. And this is why it's probably one of the most ignored stages of concern. Let me ask you a quick question. Why do you think this is probably one of the most ignored stages of concern? Again, just use your chat box. I would love to get some of the input. Why do you think that we often overlook personal concerns at this stage? Just going to give everyone a chance to type in, do some thinking about that. And, and while you're typing in, I just wanted to share something with you. Some things coming in there. Isaac, inferior complex. Yes, Mark focuses on the business goal. Yeah, absolutely. Teresa, perceived as softer issues. Oh, love it. Yeah, it's really all real stuff and real concerns, and that's probably why, it doesn't. I mean, one of the other reasons that often, I do see there, and you may have thought about it, just may not have written it out, is focus is on the teams, not on individuals, quite correct. But fear is one of those things, why generally again, leaders feel like they are going through the change on their own. It tends to break the connection with what is comfortable, with what you are secure in. So it tends to make us feel insecure. Yeah, we have a fear element. And most of us have fear elements. We all want to do things perfectly. We all want to contribute. We're all afraid of what people are going to think, say about us. So we try and do things perfectly. And we know that, guess what? We're very seldom going to do it perfectly. So, got to get over that fear. But let me give you 2 other reasons why this is one of the hardest stages. It's certainly a harder stage to address than the first stage, which was the information concern, because information concerns you can do via a broad-based communication. You can communicate to a large group of people all at the same time, where personal concerns by nature have to be handled in smaller groups, in teams, or individually. And yeah, they tend to take up more time as well as more energy. And because you're not able to just send out one message to a large group saying, hey guys, here are the reasons why we're going to change, this is the change, and this is what we're going to be doing. A lot easier when you've got information concerns versus personal concerns. Another reason is that, and we touched on it a little bit, and this is probably more of a psychological one. And I think, Teresa, you might have touched on it. When people have personal concerns, what does it sound like? It sounds like whining. It sounds like complaining. Why do we have to do this? Why can't we just keep things the way they were? Why do we need to change? So, I think that's certainly one of the reasons that it comes up, is that it sounds like whining, it sounds like complaining. Jumping on to the third stage, this is the implementation concerns. So this again, it's really about the how. How are we going to get this done? Who's been part of the planning process? Have we really thought this through? What can go wrong? Do we have a plan B? Is there a plan B? Do we have enough resources allocated to this? So, the first three stages, the information, personal, and implementation concerns, those are the first three stages. You've got those concerns. And one of the questions, that come up again, and this is, again, one of the challenges is with information concerns, is that most leaders, when they start to talk about or initiate a change, guess what? They've already gone through the first three stages. They've gone through the information, personal, and implementation concerns, because guess what? They probably have more information than anyone else. They know how this is going to affect them personally, and they've got a pretty good idea of what the plan is going to be. So when we start to communicate that as leaders, we start to communicate from the point where we are at. And, if you go back and you look at communication, if you really want to impact people, you've got to meet them where they're at. But if you start communicating from the point of where you're at, then your concerns are more, well, how is the results going to impact? Is this going to work the way we expect it to work? So we go about trying to sell the change, and we don't necessarily meet the people that we try to explain the change where they're at. We don't give them the message, they don't receive the message, because we don't meet them where they're at. So, you've got to meet people at the information, personal, and at the implementation concerns if you're going to make change a success. So another question that I'd like to ask everyone is, and again, use your chat box. What happens if you don't address information, personal, and implementation concerns? What increases? Just think about that for a second and open up your chat box and then just type in, if you don't address the first three stages, what would increase? Resistance, anxiety, risk to change failure, mistrust. Yeah, all of those things will definitely increase. These are some of the ones that I've come up and I've heard from others. When you look at it, it's fear, worry, doubt, rumors, time spent off task, anxiety we touched, confusion, increasing mistakes, frustration, distrust, another big one, impatience. So we've touched on most of these, and I guess you would agree with me that none of these are good things. I'm sure you'll agree with me that none of these are good things. So you have to convince people that there is a solid reasoning, a solid rationale for doing these things, instead of carrying on and doing things the way we've always done them. Another question is, okay, so we looked at what increases. Now, what decreases when we don't address information, personal, and implementation concerns? Again, just use your chat box. Would love to hear what decreases. Oh, engagement decreases, productivity, confidence again, yeah, commitment, productivity. You guys must have seen my next slide. I think you're preempting a lot of what I'm going to say. Success to make the change, absolutely. So a lot of those things, yeah, all of those are things that tend to decrease if we don't address them. So yeah, trust, buy-in, ownership, quality, creativity, risk-taking, respect, optimism, speed of engagement, productivity, all of those things tend to decrease. And again, when these things decrease, yeah, we all agree that it's not good things to have happen in the organization. You can lose good staff. Absolutely, Alex, I totally agree. Part of the, not just the speed of engagement, but engagement within the organization. Yeah, people tend to get frustrated, people leave, people get demotivated. So yeah, absolutely. All of those things are certainly part of it. Let's move on to the next stage, which is really impact concerns. Now, people with impact concerns are going to be asking themselves and are going to be looking at the following things, because they have the following needs. They need to see data, they need to see proof that this change is really starting to reduce the gap of where we're at to what it could be like, from where you're at to where you're trying to go. Are we closing that gap? And then they quite quickly evaluate if, is it really worth all of the effort they're doing? Another thing that they're going to need is they need to know that they have the opportunities to learn from other people's successes. So one of the things I say, if one side of an organization is implementing change and you're having success, share the success stories with everyone, because the more you can share success stories, the more you motivate people who are in the impact concerns. Another thing that people need to have, if they've got impact concerns, is to believe that the change is sustainable, because I think it was mentioned earlier, sustainability. And yeah, anything that we change, we want to see both short-term results, but we also want to see longer-term results. Can we maintain these changes? Can we sustain them into the future? So people with impact concerns are really going to be focusing on results and on coordinating and cooperating with other people. The last stage, and I'm just going to quickly grab a quick drink. The last stage is the refinement concerns. And again, people with refinement concerns need to know that there's a tipping point has been reached and that most people are on board and we're succeeding with the change. I mean, if you just think of, the situation we're going through now, I'm sitting here in Zurich in Switzerland, and I guess all of the people looking after the COVID-19 and the coronavirus have kind of decided that we've reached a tipping point and that, the number of new cases are slowing down, etc. And we can start to see some success, so we can start to free the lockdown up a bit. So people with refinement concerns are looking for, has a tipping point been reached and are we succeeding? They're also going to want to know, can we continuously refine the process? Can we continuously refine the change? And is this valued? Is it valued by an organization? No different to what we're going through. The government has quite quickly said, we're going to monitor it. If it's going in the right direction, we'll carry on. Otherwise, we're going to make some refinements, some changes, because we need to keep the process going in the right direction, because you want the change to happen and the improvement to see. So, refinement concerns, again, it's about people need to believe that they are trusted. People need to believe that the change that they're doing, the change that they're leading is going forward. So people with refinement concerns are focused on the continuous improvement side, want to be entrusted with the refinement process that they can take and lead themselves. Again, I just got a couple of questions for everybody. Open up your chat box. And I'd love you to take a couple of minutes and think about and type in, think about the questions, concerns that you or others in your organization or people around you may have when a current change is going on. I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes because this is quite a critical one. So, think about, some of the questions or concerns that people around you, others may have about a current change in your organization. It can be a big sea change, small sea change, but I really would love to hear your thoughts of what some of the questions, what some of the concerns that can be raised. Just going to give everyone a couple of minutes for this one. Thank you, Teresa. Impact on job security. That's certainly one of shared also, yeah. And then Mark saying, is it safe to continue working? Yeah, absolutely. Isaac, are we not going to be retrenching as the results of this change? Absolutely, good questions. Christine, impact, will it be successful? Will it work? These are a lot of the questions and concerns that people are going to raise. Is this going to work? Are we going to see the results? When you think about it, the personal concern, am I going to get impacted? Is my job at risk? Is it safe? Is it safe to carry on? What are the alternatives? Yeah, have we thought about different things? And I'm quite sure if we had to take every single one of those concerns that we see coming up, whether it's, business behavior post-lockdown to business sustainability, any of those, I believe we could take any of those, and if we had to highlight a chart with, the 5 stages of concern, all of those would fit into one of the 5 stages. Business sustainability, where do I see myself in the change? Again, that's a personal concern. Absolutely. So I think, from what I've seen, and, you let me know if you agree or disagree, is that, every one of those concerns, questions we have would fall into those 5 stages of concern. Kathy says, not ready for the change. Yeah, we very seldom are ready for change. I think that's why most change initiatives fail or stall. And probably, and I'm not just talking about within organizations, just think about any personal changes you might have made. If you're like me, who knows that you should be getting out and exercising more, and you want to do it, why you should be doing it, but do you get it done? Not as easy. So every week I keep trying to restart a new fitness routine, and I get to day 3, day 4, and I'm on day 4 today. So today I better get it done because it's day 3, day 4 when things start to fall apart. But enough of my fitness regime. Let's focus on some of the questions and concerns. So what I've just thrown up on on the screen is what I believe to be about, I think it's 15 different reasons as to why change efforts fail or get derailed or are stalled. And I've also heard of change initiatives that overpromise and tend to underdeliver. We see that quite often. So these are 15 of the most common reasons. I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes just to read through those, because then what I would like you to do after you've read them. So let me just keep quiet for a second or two, read those 15. And while you read those, I'll have another sip of water, because my next thing I would like to do, and I'm going to shrink it, but not too much, is I'm going to ask you in the chat box, you've seen the 15, you don't need to rewrite, but just say, which are your top reasons that you see? And you can just type in the numbers. They don't have to be in any order. Type in 179, whatever you think are some of the top reasons that you've seen in your organization or you've seen before when it comes to change. What are some of the reasons that change efforts failed or get derailed and stall? Just go ahead, open up your chat box, type in, any of the numbers that you feel are some of the reasons that you can associate yourself with and that you might have seen. I'm just having a look. I look at it and, some of them we've mentioned before. Ah, yeah, change is not tested or piloted. Oh, that's one that I've seen happen before. But here we got, Kathy says number 14, people leading the change don't model the mindset and behavior. The change requires, absolutely, Kathy. I mean, I've worked for leaders where they would quite openly tell you, do this, which was basically do what I say, but then don't go away and behave the way I behave. So Teresa says 4, 5, 2, and 15. 5 people leading the change don't communicate a compelling case for the change. Absolutely, Teresa, very, very true. You need to have a vision. You need to get people to buy into it. You need to know initially where it is you want to go. And I see there's numbers coming in. Gregory says number 4. Christiana 2 and 7. Urs 4, 11 and 14. Alex 14, 5 and 8. Number 8. The change plan is unrealistic and incomplete. Yeah, I think, a lot of us will have seen that too. So we've got a lot of great and wonderful ideas out there, on why change fails. Again, I'm going to share the slides with you so you'll have all 15 of those. So absolutely, keep them in the back of your mind. What I wanted to share is a tool which I call the change scan. Because, we've looked at the 5 stages of concerns. We haven't really looked at the strategies that go with it. And again, because of time, I'll quickly touch on a little bit of them. But, the important part is when you're creating the strategies for it is when you're communicating it, and any communication in terms of strategy, you really need to know where you are going. You need to know where you're at, so you know where to focus your efforts on. And you need to be able to identify how the change is being viewed by the people that you're asking to change. So this change scan is something that can be used as a poll to gather data, large number of people, small number of people. It generally gets done anonymously, so it's a good way to poll information, get a feeling of where everyone is at individual levels. And, the change scan consists of 25 different questions, and it covers 6 different elements from, the high involvement, the strategies of the frame, the build, the strength and trust attitude towards change. It's got questions below, and actually I'm going to be sharing those with you. I won't do it right now. I'll do it at the end. But I will share the 25 questions with you. So again, it's something that you can use. Keep in mind when you're going through any change initiatives of how you can think of the questions, use them to poll people, to get people's buy-in, get people's understanding, try and meet them where they are at, because then they'll better perceive and receive your message. I'm conscious of time, and I want to open it up to Q&A as quickly as I can. So one of the things I'm going to be sharing with you via email, I'm going to share the white paper. And actually the white paper I want to quickly share now. If I can get into my system. Okay, no, it's not letting me in. What I will do, I will send everyone out an email that was on here. If you don't get it, please reach out to me. I'd love to share these resources with you. So I'm going to share a white paper, which is really making change stick, and it highlights how you can utilize this model. It also looks at some of the change strategies that we didn't really touch on. I would like to highlight and send you the change scan, as well as some questions around high involvement change mindset, because I know that was mentioned by a couple of you, the mindset in terms of how we see and envisage the change. And there's also an action plan that I would like to share with you, which really looks at the 11 steps. And this will help you to lead a high involvement change effort. High involvement, again, is what I say is really something that's rich in dialogue, rich in communication. And the last thing I'll share with you is the Leading People Through Change overview, which, is both it's a program we have, and it's both a one-day face-to-face, or it can even be done over 3 2-hour virtual settings, which is probably the way most change will take now. So if anyone's interested, please reach out to me. The reason I also put my email address up there, if you like me and you go away and you take some time to process things. So you go away, you think about what you heard, and maybe tomorrow in the shower, on the bike, taking a walk, you think of some questions, then, you know, please reach out to me, email me. You know, I would love to do my best in being able to answer any of the questions that you may have. You know, and I just want to jump on. So now I'm going to let me go and unmute everybody, because I would really like to open it up to and I can't find the unmute. Because it's hiding behind my other screen. So I'm going to quickly unmute everyone. And yeah, if you have a question, please go ahead, you know, unmute yourself. And, you know, I would love to hear the question you have. If you haven't got a microphone connected, then, you know, by all means, go ahead and type into the chat box. But I'd love to hear, you know, your question, and I would love to be able to answer them as best as I can. And as I said, you know, if you...
Hello, Abdullah.
Hi, yes. Was that a question? Sorry, I caught the tail end of it. Okay, potentially not a question. No, and as I said, if you're like me and you think of a question later on down the line, then, you know, by all means, please, you know, feel free, reach out to me. I'd love to be able to answer the questions any way that I possibly can. And I actually want to really, I do want to share that with you, but
Robbie?
Yes.
It's Dean here.
Hi, Dean. How are you? How is the UK?
It's okay at the moment. Beautifully sunny right now, which is brilliant.
Excellent. Glad to hear.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I mean, our setting is not a business setting, but you talked about information gathering, the need to understand where people are and working from there. In terms of how one gathers that information, it's quite difficult to, I don't know, I mean, there are different ways of doing it. Does one do it by questionnaire, by sort of personal conversations with people? How does one get to the root of where people are at so that you can then bring them from there to where you need them to be?
Dean, excellent question. Couple of different ways. Again, you know, I know the setting you're referring to. So in that case, you know, it can be done in a variety of different ways. Yes, you can do it if people feel comfortable. You can do it one-to-one, face-to-face. On the other hand, as the number of people becomes bigger, or as they are, you know, virtually in different countries, different parts of the world, then potentially doing something online. And then, you know, and then I would suggest, you know, the change scan has got 15 questions and it's got a bit of a process, absolutely would work wonderfully well for that, whether you do it face-to-face or online, because that highlights exactly where everyone tends to be. You can do that both, you know, anonymously or, you know, and know where, or, you know, not anonymously and know where people are. So there are different ways. There's no one size fits all, but I would, you know, when I send you the change scan questions, I would, you know, encourage you to have a look at those, because I think that would be an excellent place to start. And then you can take it and implement it into your setting the way you think is best.
Thanks. I'll do that. Thanks, Robbie.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for the question, Dean. And regards to Roger.
Yeah, thank you. And I like your hairstyle. It's growing.
Oh, man.
God, go to do
That's part of the lockdown. You can't even get a hair.
I know.
Excellent.
It's lockdown style.
At least we can have some fun. You know, and again, I would love to hear any other questions from anyone that may have. I would love to be able to answer them now. Or again, as I say, if you have questions and you want to connect with me at a later stage, one-to-one, by all means do that. And, later this afternoon, I'll send you out, as I said, I'll send you out the research paper. I'll send out the change question scans. Isaac's got a question. Isaac, I've hit unmute, but I think you need to also accept to be unmuted.
Oh, yes. Hi, Robbie.
Hi, Isaac. How are you? How's sunny South Africa? I hope it's sunny at least.
It's very sunny and lovely. South Africa is well, and we are surviving.
Hopefully.
My question, Robbie.
Yes, sir.
Running a small entity, especially training, which was established from, a social background and turned into a business. I would like to take my team on board without seeming to be imposing on them, because they are still used to that social way of running things. Now we are running it on a business point of view. What are the tips that you can share with me so that we can do it collectively, so that they have the total buy-in and they can run it on their own?
Very good question. Isaac, I love it. Thank you for that one. Now, again, it really depends. In the first place, I'd probably, I would start to think is, are the people you are looking at helping, and working with collectively all at same level, or are there some that are going to have more responsibility than others? That could be one of my first questions, and that might be able to help me to answer your question better.
Actually, they are my co-shareholders, but I am the visionary in the whole organization.
Perfect. Okay, then thank you for that. That helps me a lot more. Okay, if they are co-shareholders and you are the visionary behind it, then, again, I go back to, if you have the power, to me, sometimes change is not mandatory. We need to change, and we all need to accept that we need to change. Yes, we can discuss other things, but we cannot, let's say, not discuss that we need to change. And I think if you're able to take your vision, explain to them the need of why do we need to change, explain to them the reasoning, the rationale behind that, that has helped you realize that you need to change. I believe if you share that with people, share the vision that you have, people become more open. I don't believe in saying to people, you have to do it this way. Change, yes, we're going to do it, but we can do it together. The vision, the direction you want to go to, that is, pre-established, so we're going there. How we get there, let's discuss that, because that's where you want their buy-in. If you tell them we're going to that destination and this is how we're going to get there, you will lose some of them. So I would, show them the vision, the end destination, the reasons why, and then collectively work together on establishing and coming up with the pathway, because they might have some wonderful ideas that you haven't even thought about yet.
Yes,
so I would certainly encourage you to get their buy-in, because, everyone is creative, and I believe that 2, 3, 10 minds are much better than just one mind.
No, 100%. Thanks for that, Robbie.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And Isaac, if you have any other questions, we've spoken several times, please, by all means, reach out. If you want me to maybe sit in on something or help you in any way, I gladly would do that. I'm here to help you in any way I can, Isaac.
100%.
I know that you have got a wonderful concept, and yes, I want to see you succeed.
We'll definitely do. Thanks so much, Robbie.
My pleasure. Thank you. And I think we've got time for just one final more question. So if there's one more question, then please, by all means, you should be unmuted, accepted, or just type it into the chat box. But I would love to hear your question. Okay, seems like there's no questions at the moment. If you come up with questions, please reach out. In that case, then this concludes this afternoon session. And I just want to say, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking part in leading people through change. And I hope to see you on one of our next webinars in the coming weeks. In that case, thank you to all, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Wherever you may be, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you guys soon. Thank you all.